Hello dear students, welcome back to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. So in this session, we are going to discuss few important articles that are given in today's Hindu newspaper. And before discussing them, let's try to analyze or let's try to solve yesterday practice question and then followed by today's practice question also. So yesterday in previous lecture I've given you one practice question. The question was, consider the following statements with respect to model code of conduct. So first statement says that Election Commission of India under Article 324 issues a model code of conduct. Now what do you think about this statement? So in fact, it is true that Article 324 of the Indian Constitution talks about the Election Commission of India. In fact, Indian Constitution through Article 324 created an independent body, that is Election Commission of India, for conducting free and fair elections. Right, so we have a democratic model of governance. So to conduct free and fair elections, Article 324 created an independent constitutional election commission of India. So however, now one thing that you have to understand here, the model code of conduct does not have any statutory backing, and it is also not backed by any constitutional provision. So therefore, first statement is clearly incorrect here. And the second statement, the model code of conduct is operational from the date on which the election schedule is announced until the date of the result announcement. Now this statement is correct. See, I've asked you to comment the correct answer in the comment section. Okay, so please try to answer these questions in the comment section, so that actually helps you to understand things in a better manner. I hope most of you knew the answer for these questions, because we have been regularly discussing about the model code of conduct since the general elections have been taking place. So there is a chance that either in UPSC or state PSC examinations you may get questions on this model code of conduct. So therefore it is very important for us to understand about this model code of conduct. So therefore, as per the model code of conduct, the correct answer for this question is 2, only 2. Okay, now briefly understand this model code of conduct. So this model code of conduct, what is this model code of conduct? It is a set of guidelines which are being issued by the Election Commission of India. Right, so a set of guidelines which are being issued by the Election Commission of India to regularize the political parties and candidates prior to elections. Now, whenever election schedule is being announced, or whenever elections are being conducted in any part of the country, the problem is that vote bank politics, or mobilizing voters on caste lines, religious lines, and even hate speeches. So they are dominating the political narratives whenever the elections are being declared. So therefore, in order to curtail those instances, in order to provide a set of guidelines for both political parties and the candidates, the Election Commission of India, when it declares the schedule for the election, the model code of conduct also immediately came into effect, whether it is about the by-election or state elections or elections, general elections. Okay, so it actually varies. Okay, so for example, if it is about the assembly elections, then the model code of conduct would be applicable for the entire state. And if it is with respect to the by-elections, then the model code of conduct would be applicable to that constituency where the by-elections are taking place. Okay, so there is no point applying the model code of conduct to entire nation whenever this whenever this assembly elections are held for one state, or bi-poll elections are being held for one single constituency. However, with respect to these general elections, the Lok Sabha elections, the model code of conduct is applicable for the entire country, because general elections are actually takes place entire country. Now the other thing that you have to understand here is that the model code of conduct does not have any statutory backing. So no law of the parliament talks about the model code of conduct, and even no constitutional provision also talks about the model code of conduct. However, we already knew that Article 324 of the Indian Constitution provided for the Election Commission of India for conducting free and fair elections. Right now, the Article 324 gives the power to supervise, conduct free and fair elections to the Parliament and state legislature. So the model code of conduct is employed by the Election Commission from the date on which the election schedule is announced until the date of the announcement of the result. This model code of conduct will be in force, right? Now you can go through this exact definition of this model code of conduct which is being issued by the Election Commission of India. And today also I have a very simple practice question. The question is, Energy Transition Index is released by which of the following organizations? So option A, World Economic Forum, option B, World Energy Agency, option C, International Renewable Energy Agency, and option D, World Bank. So this is a very easy question. So try to answer this question in the comment section and I'll provide you the correct answer tomorrow. Because see, these indexes or reports published by different agencies are very frequently asked. So therefore it is also important for you to know which indexes or which reports are published by which agencies. Okay, so they'll be helpful for you, especially for the objective type examinations. Now the first article that we are going to start this discussion today is about the generalized system of preferences. Okay, so what exactly is this generalized system of preferences? We try to understand this in a very brief manner. So generalized system of preferences actually means that USA provide a certain certain privileges for the developing countries, or privileges in the sense that trade privileges, right? Okay, so certain trade privileges for developing countries. So these privileges ensures that the tariffs would be lesser for the products which have been entering into the US markets from the developing countries. Okay, so that lesser tariffs. Now I can tell you one example. For example, India exporting certain goods to US. Now if US covers Indian products under this generalized system of preferences, then these products from India into US would receive, or they attract lesser tariffs. So with the lesser tariffs, these goods can enter into the US markets. Okay, so thereby providing a more competitive advantage for the Indian goods compared to other developed countries goods, and that is the generalized system of preferences. So I hope you have understood this generalized system of preferences. Now understand the context of this particular article. So the context is that United States, the renewal of the generalized system of preferences. Now understand here that US periodically reviews this generalized system of preferences. So this generalized system of preference, or GSP, provide economic incentives. Now economic incentives in the sense, for example, US providing these trade privileges, so that comes under the economic incentives for the developing countries, not the developed countries. Understand, the trade privileges or economic incentives are provided for the developing nations through trade reductions or through tariff reductions. For example, any country's products entering into the other country, for example, countries A products entering into the countries B markets, then these products must pay a certain amount of taxes or tariffs before entering into the markets of B. Okay, now in this generalized system of preferences, US would reduce the amount of tariffs. For example, the tariff amount is around 35% in original case, and US under GSP reduces the tariffs to around 10% or 15%. So thereby providing a privileged economic access to Indian goods, not just Indian goods but any other developing countries' goods. However, this generalized system of preferences is currently stalled, and currently it is being halted. So since it is halted, it has been creating a lot of concerns over the implications for global trade and at the same time the bilateral relations between India and the USA. Now we'll try to understand this in a much deeper manner. Now here you can see what exactly is this generalized system of preferences. Okay, so this generalized system of preferences was instituted on January 1st, 1976 by the Trade Act of 1974 by the United States. And this program designed to promote economic growth in the developing world. Okay, so this will promote economic growth in the developing world, providing the preferential duty-free entry of developing countries' products into the US markets. Up to 5,000 products imported from one of 123 designated beneficiary countries and territories. Now, this generalized system of preferences actually facing the legislative hurdles. Okay, so because the generalized system of preferences program is actually subjected to periodic expiration and then renewal by the Congress. Now, in India, we have the Parliament. In a similar way, US has the Congress. Okay, so again, Congress has two houses, Senate and the lower house. So whenever USA has been planning to announce or declare its generalized system of preferences, it must require the approval from its Congress. So therefore, this approval has not yet been given to the generalized system of preferences after its expiration in 2020, despite it is getting the bipartisan support. Now, bipartisan support in the sense that, so when we think about the US Congress, so in US Congress, there are two major parties. One, Democrats, and second, Republicans. Now, both Democrats and Republicans have been supporting this GSP. So therefore, despite this bipartisan support, the GSP is not yet passed in the Congress, and that has been creating a lot of concerns here. Now, secondly, so we need to understand the importance of this generalized system of preferences for the developing world, for the developing countries. So it is very, very important because the developing countries can be able to export their goods at a much lesser taxes or much less duties into the US markets. So therefore, this generalized system of preferences plays a crucial role in facilitating market access for developing nations, because this has been providing market access for the developing countries, and that is very, very important. Now, under the guise of protectionism, most of the developed countries are not providing market access to the developing countries' products. So, but the GSP has been providing market access to the products of developing countries, and because of that reason, GSP is very, very important for the developing countries. And apart from that, in developing countries, this GSP will benefit the small businesses, certainly the micro, small and medium enterprises in countries like India, and women owned enterprises. So women also own a lot of enterprises, so it benefits MSMEs, women owned enterprises, and promoting economic reforms and sustainability in those developing countries. And after that, there are also a diverse support coalitions, because the bipartisan support from both Democrats and Republicans to this GSP renewal is evident. Okay, so it is very clear that both these major political groups are actively supporting the generalized system of preferences. However, the various stakeholders who are actually part of this GSP are emphasizing on its significance in diversifying the supply chains So it could diversify the supply chains within the trade networks and reducing tariffs and even fostering a friendly trade ties, including talks with countries like India. So therefore, this GSP is not just important for the developing countries, but it would also significantly strengthen India-US ties in the long term. Now, we'll briefly understand India-US trade relationship. Now, please understand, now USA is India's largest trading partner. Okay, so USA has overtaken China as India's largest trading partner. Okay, so now bilateral trade between India and USA is more than $100 billion. And the other significant factor is that the trade balance is in favor of India. Now, if you look at India and China trade, so the trade balance is in whose favor? So you just write this in a comment section. So when we talk about the India-China bilateral trade, the trade balance is in whose favor? But on the other hand, if you look at India and USA trade, bilateral trade, the trade balance is in favor of India. Okay, so that is another major advantage for us. So there is also a potential GSP renewal in US-India trade talks. So this GSP renewal could actually pave the way for a broader trade negotiations, right? Now, there is no doubt that when GSP renewal takes place, if it takes place in US, then that could substantially or significantly boost trade between India and USA. Okay, so it could be beyond current 200 billion mark. It could cross even the 200 billion mark trade between India and US. And there are also certain previous negotiations and potential scope for the trade between India and US also, because the prior negotiations between US and Indian trade representatives actually hinted or signaling a wide range of agreement which has been covering different sectors. So sectors like medical devices, agriculture products, information technology. So those things actually benefit countries like India, because those business deals actually have the element of technology transfer and boost exports, boost economic growth, and they also have the element of investments in India. So therefore, all these factors substantially benefit India in gradually enhancing its bilateral trade with US. However, there are certain limitations also within the trade between India and USA. So despite India's efforts in negotiating these free trade agreements with different countries, now we have been negotiating these free trade agreements with different countries, right? So for example, recently we have negotiated this free trade agreement with the European Free Trade Association, that is a block of 4 countries in Europe, so which are not part of the European Union. And we also have a free trade agreement, similar agreements with the United Arab Emirates and even with the Australia. So therefore, we have been inking these free trade agreements with the number of countries, number of partners. However, US stance on these free trade agreements limits the scope for the comprehensive trade agreements. So US very often holds the negative view on the free trade agreements, so that has been limiting the comprehensive trade agreement between India and US, making GSP renewal a crucial avenue for the trade enhancement. Now, if USA is not ready to have such a free trade agreement with India, then of course GSP would play a most important role in enhancing the bilateral trade or enhancing India's trade with the US. And we need to understand the role of generalized system of preferences in US-India trade relations. So firstly, benefits of GSP negotiations. So generalized system of preferences renewal actually offers a strategic opportunity for us. for trade negotiations addressing several areas. Okay, so those areas are very often known as the bone of contention areas. For example, goods and services, labor rights, environmental laws, and regulatory practices. So thus bolstering the trade ties. And after that, recent times, India and USA have substantially strengthened their relations with respect to the emerging geostrategic construct Indo-Pacific. Now we can align this bilateral trade with the Indo-Pacific collaboration as well, thereby further stepping up this trade relation. So amidst growing strategic collaboration in the Indo-Pacific region, leveraging of GSP for trade enhancement underscores the mutual aspirations from the US side and also Indian side to have a more deeper trade relations in the future. And after that, we should also look after the a way forward for a comprehensive trade engagement between these two countries, which benefit these countries, mutually benefit these countries. While GSP alone may not suffice, see, with respect to free trade agreements, USA have some sort of a negative impression on these free trade agreements. Now, since USA has a negative impression, so India can look for the potential opportunities, in trade within this GSP framework. However, GSP alone may not suffice in the longer term, and its renewal actually signals a strong commitment towards advancing the bilateral trade relations, aligning with the broader strategic interests and the longer economic objectives between these two countries. And if you want a more detail on the generalized system of preferences, you can go through this. Okay. Now, the next important article is with respect to senior citizens healthcare. Senior citizens healthcare. Now, please understand that India is not an aging economy. So rather, we are an economy with the one of the highest levels of demographic dividend, where our old age population stands at just 7%. However, over a period of time, in the next 2 decades, starting from next 2 decades, India's old age population will gradually starts increasing. So therefore, it is very important for the government to provide the social security and social safety nets for the old age people, because they are vulnerable category. So they are vulnerable category, they are marginalized category, and they very often lack the essential medical access in their older ages. So therefore, in this context, it is very important from the government perspective that these old age people must be covered under the Jan Arogya Yojana. Jan Arogya Yojana. Okay, so that is covering the old age people with the health insurance. Ayushman Bharat provides a health cover of 5 lakh rupees for every family in a year. However, the problem is that as of now, the senior citizens are not covered under the Ayushman Bharat health insurance program. Now, we'll understand the context of this article. The context is that the recent poll promise of state-sponsored health insurance of 5 lakh for those above 70 years of age. Now, this Ayushman Bharat program provides health insurance of 5 lakh rupees to every household, right? But recent poll promise from the government has been emphasizing that there will be a state-sponsored health insurance of up to 5 lakh for those who are above 70 years of age. And in fact, it has been included in the BJP's election manifesto, and that said that Ayushman Bharat coverage would be extended to the people who are above 70 years of age. Now, in fact, this Ayushman Bharat healthcare program is largest healthcare program in the world. Okay, so that is also known as Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Now, I have already told you that this Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana provides a 5 lakh health cover to every household. health insurance to every household. So this scheme is world's largest government funded healthcare program, right? So this is the world's biggest or largest government funded program. The main benefit is hospitalization cost of up to 5 lakh per family per year is provided by the government. So in fact, as of now, this Ayushman Bharat program has 12 crore beneficiaries who are from the economically weakest section. Okay, so they constitute 40% of country's population. However, one disadvantage with the Ayushman Bharat program, understand this Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana is also known as the Ayushman Bharat Abhiyan. Okay, so it is also known as Ayushman Bharat Abhiyan. So therefore, one more disadvantage is that the coverage is limited to pre and post hospitalization costs. So unlike the normal or regular health cover provided by different institutes, so extending coverage to older people can actually change family and hospital finance dynamics in a couple of interesting ways. So in those which ways we'll understand that. In India, the out of pocket health expenditure is one of its highest, so it is around 42%. And apart from that, most of the poor people are very vulnerable to the high out of pocket healthcare expenditure. So therefore, in this context, the government coming forward announcing the health care insurance of 5 lakh per household every year is a welcome initiative, but because that is specifically addresses this out of pocket health expenditure problem of the poor and marginalized sections of the society in India. Now, as I have already told you that India has the highest levels of demographic dividend because majority of our population are in the youth, young age. So therefore, the median age in India is relatively low compared to several other countries or rest of the world. Now, if you look at countries like China or Japan or any other European countries, their economies are essentially the old age economies. Okay, so in China specifically because of the one child policy that was followed by them before. Okay, so therefore about 25% in the age group of 0 to 14 years and 68% of our population in the age group of 15 to 65 years, and because of that reason we have the highest levels of demographic dividend in the world. But when we talk about the senior citizens or people who are in the older ages above 70 years, so barely 7% are older than 65 years, and their healthcare requirements as a group would be significant because they are also very often vulnerable to these healthcare risks. And in this context, it is very important for from the government side to provide them the relevant healthcare cover. So existing coverage per family, it is a 5 lakh per family, the existing cover. Okay, so 5 lakh per annum per family. So will the major questions are, will the 70% family members, 70 plus family members be added to the same family unit? For example, imagine a family of 5, and within the family we have one aged person who is aged above 70 years of age. Now under Ayushman Bharat, so this 5 unit family is extended 5 lakh per year healthcare insurance. Then the old age person require a substantial amount of this health coverage. But what about other people? They will become vulnerable. So therefore the major question is, will the 70 plus family members added to the same family unit, in which case they will now share the umbrella of 5 lakh cover. Okay, so the 5 lakh cover would be applicable for all of them. And in this context, the old age person has the need, or the old age person would use the 5 lakh cover. But what about the other family members or will they eligible for a separate 5 lakh sum insured? So that is the major question that has to be addressed. Okay, so if the Jan Arogya Yojana or Ayushman Bharat scheme would be extended to the old age persons. Now, addition to the scheme can actually mean that hospitalization bills will be less of a burden for the rest of the family, because now the hospital bills of the senior citizens or old age people are covered under the Ayushman Bharat. And it also means that a meaningful access to healthcare where they may otherwise be helplessly ignored by the family with fragile finances, because family very often having the fragile finances and they are not included under the Ayushman Bharat program or any other program, since they have a very lesser income. So the old age are being helplessly ignored by the family. So therefore, the old age healthcare becomes more important as life expectancy of Indians has significantly gone up in recent times. So now life expectancy has increased because of improvement in the standard of living, and along with the life expectancy, the healthcare costs are also significantly increased. So therefore, in this context, the government considering extension of this Ayushman Bharat program to old age people is a welcome move from the government. Therefore, the government hospitals too were preferring insured patients, including those under the mass insured schemes, because it meant revenue versus giving free treatment out of their budgets, right? Now, there are a few other programs which are specifically launched by the government for old age people. One was Atal Vayo Abhyuday Yojana. So this Atal Abhyuday Vayo Abhyuday Yojana is a society in which the senior citizens live a healthy, happy, empowered, dignified and self-reliant life along with a strong social and intergenerational bonding. So that is the scheme of Atal Vayo Abhyuday Yojana. And another important program was Vayo Shrestha Samman. So the main objective of this Vayo Shrestha Samman's program or scheme is to improve the quality of life of older persons by providing them the basic amenities. They include shelter, food, medical amenities and entertainment opportunities. So all these facilities or amenities are provided by encouraging productive and active aging with the support of non-governmental organizations, panchayati raj institutions, local bodies and community participation. And these are a few programs which are launched for the a benefit of the old age people. So the next very important article is with respect to the World Health Organization recently updating a critical priority pathogens. Now these critical priority pathogens are actually pathogens which have been developing the antimicrobial resistance. Now we all knew what exactly is this antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial resistance means that, for example, there are certain pathogens, virus, bacteria, and these pathogens when infected human beings and we take drugs to get relief from these pathogens. But over a period of time, what happens with the excess exposure of these drugs, these pathogens started developing resistance, and then even if you take drugs for these pathogens, they'll be less impactful, they'll not be effective against these pathogens, and that is known as the antimicrobial resistance. Now understand the context of this article. So the context is that the critical priority pathogens present major global threats due to the high burden and the ability to resist treatment and even spread resistance to the other bacteria. And because of that reason, the critical priority pathogens pose a significant global threats. Now, for example, take example of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this COVID-19 pandemic has developed resistance to all major vaccines, and if it develops resistance to all major vaccines, so even if it infects individuals, okay, because it is contagious in nature, it infects, the infection spreads from one person to other person freely, and this person takes vaccine, and even if he takes vaccine, the vaccine would be ineffective in curbing or preventing this COVID-19. Okay, so that is how the antimicrobial resistance of pathogens are posing a major global health risks. So this is being noted by the latest bacterial pathogens priority list updated by the World Health Organization. Right now, here you can clearly understand what exactly is this antimicrobial resistance. So this antimicrobial resistance is a condition in which the bacteria continues to grow in the presence of antibiotics. Unnecessary use of these antibiotics is considered to be the most common cause of antibiotic resistance. For example, using these antibiotics without prescription and antibiotics excessively used in every aspect. Okay, so this includes the gram negative bacteria resistant to last resort antibiotics, and even the mycobacterium tuberculosis is also resistant to the antibiotic rifampicin. So this mycobacterium tuberculosis causes TB disease. Okay, now one such medicine which can be administered for this TB is rifampicin. However, this mycobacterium tuberculosis developed resistance to this rifampicin. So the list actually features 15 families of antibiotic resistant bacteria. They are actually grouped into critical, high and medium categories of prioritization. So in fact, the World Health Organization stated that high priority pathogens including Salmonella, Shigella, so they are categorized as a high priority pathogens, are particularly high burden in low and middle income countries, along with Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Staphylococcus aureus. So they actually pose significant challenges to the healthcare settings of different countries. So this antimicrobial resistance, so it occurs when bacteria, virus, fungi and other parasites no longer responding to medication. Okay, so even if you take a medicine, so they will not be impactful against those diseases, and thereby increasing the risk of disease spread, illness and deaths among the human beings. So even the higher mortality among these human beings. However, these high priority pathogens such as antibiotic resistance, Neisseria, gonorrhea, and they actually present or pose a unique public health challenges. So public health challenges in the sense, in a way, persistent infections, resistance to multiple antibiotics, necessitating targeted research and public health interventions required among these diseases. And in fact, the global burden of high drug resistant bacteria and assessing their impact on public health, this list is key to guiding investment. Okay, so since the first bacterial priority pathogens list was published by World Health Organization in the year 2017, the threat of this antimicrobial resistance has further intensified in recent times. Okay, so because of all these factors, the antimicrobial resistance threat has been significantly increased. Okay, so that threat has been posing new challenges to the public healthcare system across the world. So this has been eroding the efficacy of numerous antibiotics. So even if we use these antibiotics or antibiotics are being administered, so they are becoming less potent, less effective, and even putting many of the gains of modern medicine at serious risk. Okay, so these are the problems which are being created by the new pathogens. They are serious in nature and they are developing the antimicrobial resistance because of these following reasons. So next article is with respect to a peace process that was initiated by Switzerland between Ukraine and Russia. Now in this peace process, different countries are being invited and India is also invited. So the overall objective of this peace process to end the long-standing conflict of war between Russia and Ukraine, so thereby addressing a lot of issues such as humanitarian issues, food security issues, ending violence, so all these issues. Now Switzerland has taken up an initiative. Okay, so its foreign minister, in fact, Alexander Fazil, So he came to India and he invited India to attend this particular peace process between Ukraine and Russia. Okay, now we'll understand this particular context. So the context is that 2 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, now Switzerland have come forward, okay, and it came forward and it started organizing a peace conference. And in this peace conference, different countries are invited, including India is also invited, but Russia is not invited. Even India is invited and several other countries are being invited. So making it a special effort from the Switzerland side to broaden the global consensus on this Russia-Ukraine war by enlisting those who have not joined the Western coalition thus far. So in fact, India so far is not part of this Western coalition which criticized Russia for its war on Ukraine, for its atrocities on Ukraine. So therefore, the Switzerland effort essentially trying to bring all those countries together and build consensus on this war. And in fact, India has also got this invitation. Now understand that Russia is part of this BRICS grouping and Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And apart from Russia, India is also part of the both BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And in fact, India is known as the leader of the Global South and also an aspirant for the global or world leadership. Now in this context, India's stand on this peace process is very, very significant, because now if you look at India's stand earlier, so India has not taken a critical stand against Russia. And in fact, India has also not joined any group of countries which actually or directly condemned Russia's war on Ukraine. So therefore, India's role or India's participation in this peace process will be keenly watched across the world. And in fact, so far 160 or more countries have got the invitations for this peace process from the Switzerland. Okay, so about 50 countries have already accepted their the invitation, and they have shown the willingness to attend this peace conference. However, most of these countries which have shown this willingness to attend this peace conference are countries from European Union, NATO alliance countries, G7 countries and US allies such as Japan, South Korea and Australia. And in fact, the Switzerland actually invited BRICS countries. So BRICS, excluding Russia. So they have invited Brazil, India, China and South Africa, but not Russia, because Switzerland says that Russia would be part of the next round of negotiations. So first they wanted to create a consensus among all these countries except Russia within BRICS grouping, because they have the power to convince Russia to stop this war. Because of that reason, they wanted to invite this BRICS grouping except Russia. However, Brazil President Lula da Silva, so he said that he will not be attending this session. And on the other hand, South Africa is also not attending this session because of the elections that are going on in South Africa in the coming months. So however, it is to be seen whether India and China be part of this peace conference, and everyone keenly watching it, because both India and China have a lot of weight when it comes to convincing Russia, and they also enjoy good relations with the Russia. So therefore, it is to be seen how it is going forward, how it will go forward. So therefore, the convincing rest of the world to attend a platform that actually appears biased towards Ukraine remains one of the challenge for the organizers, especially the Switzerland. However, the Switzerland actually claims itself as neutral. It prides itself on its neutrality. So it says it is neutral between Ukraine and Russia. So the overall agenda for this particular conference is to build a framework or roadmap for peace and to discuss issues such as ensuring food security, freedom of navigation, nuclear safety, and other humanitarian issues. Okay, so apart from that, it is to be seen that whether India will be part of this particular conference or India will abstain attending this conference. So India always stands for supporting peace, and in fact India always supports both countries to shed violence and settle issues through dialogue and diplomacy. So therefore, if India attends this conference, because this conference is organized on the neutral lines, even though it appears that it is biased towards Ukraine, so then India could be able to maintain its legitimacy and credibility on the Western, in the Western lens, and at the same time it could also maintain its relations with the Russia as well. Okay, so that is actually a tightrope walk between India and tightrope walk for India in this peace process. Okay, so that's all for today, and thank you so much. So please like the video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.